look up. No more running from the bad guy. I'ma stare him in the eye like, what's up?
Hello. Oh, excuse me. I don't know what happened. Hello, and thank you for tuning in again to another one of my Story My Strength 365-day challenge. A challenge that I set for myself to show myself and everyone else what we have to deal with when we're going through trauma and how healing is not as messy, not as clean as we thought it would be after trauma, and how messy it can be, especially dealing with a lot of the emotions that we have to relive to get through to the healing process. So, just a trigger warning, this episode contains discussions of emotional trauma, sexual abuse references, psychological manipulation, humiliation, and toxic friendships. It may be especially sensitive for those who have experienced bullying, assault, or invalidation of their pain by people they once trusted. Viewer discretion is advised. Honor your boundaries, pause, or walk away if you need to, because again, this is about you. Okay, so just kind of put it out there. After trauma, there are so many things that some of us survivors allow to happen, especially if we've gone through like domestic violence, childhood abuse, certain type of ongoing trauma that we had to live through. So we allow a lot of things to happen to us, and we overlook it because we've lived through so much that we feel like some of the little things we should let go. Also, all the boundaries that we need to set, we just kind of overlook it because of what we don't want to go through a lot of arguing. We don't want to deal with a lot of conflict. So we just kind of go along with it. And I was in a situation where I thought, well, a friend that I thought was my friend, I thought I had to tolerate it because she was a flat out bully. I didn't want to deal with her when she started to throw tantrums. She's known to yell, scream, throw things. She's even known to self harm when she became angry. So not out of fear, just because I didn't want to deal with any drama, I would allow certain things that I felt wasn't that big of a deal, which it really was a big deal. But I just, you feel like you've gone through so much, this isn't that big of a deal. I let it happen, but I do know I understand now, um, where we were just, that was just as toxic as being in an unhealthy romantic relationship or being abused. So she was not a good friend, and I don't talk to her today. It finally was a big blow up, and we don't talk today. And during my times of trauma, she was never the one that ever had my back the way she expected people in our circle to have her back. So this memory is about a time when she crossed a boundary that she shouldn't have, and that I needed to establish, a boundary that I needed to establish. And she made a joke of my trauma for her entertainment. Now, she knew about me being raped and stalked by so many different guys. She knew me when I was about 13, 14. A couple of episodes I spoke about a girl I ran away with and I was trapped in the room for 3 days. Well, she was the girl that I was in the room trapped with for 3 days. But at this time in the memory, we were in our mid to late 30s. She knew I was attacked. She knew I was abused. She knew a lot about my life. And she also knew that I was stalked. And she would make that something that she would laugh about. She would call me a rapeable bitch, a stalkable bitch. And, I would ask her to stop. Like, that's not funny. I would tell her, like, that's not funny at all. One day she was on the phone with me, and when she brought it up, and she made fun of me in front of her boyfriend. She was on the call with her boyfriend, and she made fun of me in front of her boyfriend. And she said that I was You guys know I just did this whole thing and you guys weren't on there. Oh, I hope you guys are patient with me because I didn't realize that I've been doing this for 20 minutes. Okay, well, let's just do the short end of it. You guys are going to have to get the cliff notes, okay? So, what I discussed today. So, first off, I'm going to do the trigger warning again. Where are we at? This story talks about emotional trauma, sexual abuse references to psychological manipulation, humiliation, and toxic friendships. It may be especially sensitive for those who have experienced bullying, assault, and validation of their pain by people who they once trusted. Viewer discretion is advised. Honor your boundaries and pause if you need. Okay, so what I basically said was after trauma, a lot of us who survived trauma overlooked things that didn't seem like it was that big of a deal because of the things that we had to have, may have had to endure, being beat, tortured, raped. So when we go through a lot of the little things, sometimes it isn't that big of a deal. And sometimes we have people in our lives, in our circle, after we leave trauma, physical trauma, that we don't understand should not be in our circle. And that's what this story is about. It's about a girl who I knew when I was 14 years old and I kind of grew up with until our 30s. So this incident today has happened in our 30s. It started when she knew about my life. Again, I've been knowing her since I was young. And she thought it would be funny to give me a title of a rapeable, stalkable bitch. And what she did was she turned my trauma into a joke. She first started when she was on the phone with her boyfriend and myself, and she told him I was a rapeable, stalkable bitch, and she made a picture out of those photo apps, and she put my face on it like it was on a billboard, and it said stalkable bitch, rapeable bitch, 1-800 blah blah blah. Then she turned around a few months, later, maybe a year later, I moved to Alaska, and she showed me this picture in front of her boyfriend and his brother, who was my partner, and they thought it was funny and cute to laugh about this, but I didn't think it was funny. I thought it was embarrassing and humiliating. And I asked her to stop, but she wouldn't. And she's known to throw fits, throw tantrums, cut herself, throw things. So not all the time am I wanting to argue with her, but I still needed to establish my boundaries. And she thought that my trauma was something that she could make a joke out of, and it was really humiliating for her to do it because she knew I'd been raped. One of the incidents that where I was sexually attacked and stalked was because of a situation she put me in. So for her to do this, it kind of made me feel betrayed and violated and humiliated. So, and I asked her to delete the photo and she wouldn't. And that experience of the wound that it left me feeling like my pain would always be entertainment for others. It made me feel like the things that I barely survived were punchlines. And it made me question if I was truly safe or if the people that I trusted just wanted to find ways to weaponize my story for laughter. I felt invisible, and not in a quiet way, but in a way that says that you don't matter. You don't deserve to be treated like a human. And I felt dirty and disgusting and exposed. So the question that I asked, but apparently I had this off the whole time, is have you ever stayed silent about a violation because the person causing it made you feel like it wasn't a big enough deal to matter? And what small betrayals are you still carrying because the world convinced you to laugh it off? So the negative mindset that I had was that I believed that unless I was bleeding, screaming, or broken, it wasn't real pain. And I've even been told you've gone through way worse, so I felt like the way I treat you isn't a big deal. And if I stood up for myself for making, for people crossing my boundaries, I was being too sensitive. But I had to reframe that because not all of the wounds, not all of the betrayals are loud. Emotional humiliation is violent when it targets your story. And the affirmation was, my pain will never be someone else's punchline ever again. I don't need permission to be outraged, to be hurt, or to draw a line. I'm worthy of protection, even from those who once stood beside me. Okay, so, and then our mini session was name it, frame it, dismiss it, an NLP technique. You name the statement. You name it. Identify the statement. In my case, it was a rapeable bitch, and she made a mockery of my trauma. And the next step would be to frame it. Frame the statement through your lens. This was an attack, not a joke. It's a reflection of her cruelty, not my worth. And then you dismiss it. You use verbal and visual NLP methods to close your eyes, see the words come out to a rapeable bitch, and you say out loud, that doesn't belong to me. And you repeat that 3 times. This teaches your brain that not all attacks deserve space in your identity. So today's uh, mini empowerment challenge is to list 3 phrases or jokes that have been weaponized against you, and then write them down. Write down what they actually mean to you. Example. Oh, and then scratch it out. Scratch out the false version and write the truth, or say it out loud. She called me a rapeable bitch, but that means I'm an unbreakable woman who stands. Destroy the narrative that they tried to give you and claim your own. And then we are going to go to our survivor spotlight, which is Miss Kelis. Miss Kelis was known for her boldness of her voice. She sang songs like "Caught Out There" and "Milkshake," and she was, but the world never truly knew how much she had to endure behind the scenes. She was born in Harlem, and she came from a creative background. Her mother was a fashion designer and a chef, and her father was a jazz musician, so she had music in her blood. But in her late teens, she was signed to her first record deal and became a trendsetter of R&B and hip hop. Loud and unfiltered, she was unapologetically herself. And she was a very young black woman, and she had to deal with emotional abandonment, industry exploitation, and intimate partner abuse. In 2005, she went public about being emotionally manipulated, gaslit, and physically abused by her at the time husband, Nas. And she remained silent because she didn't come public. She remained silent because she didn't want the world to know. And when she did come clean late years later, she found that she was met with backlash, dismissal, and betrayal, because not only from the fans of her ex, but from the industry that wanted her to stay quiet about it. She felt abandoned for telling her truth. While conversations about abuse were starting to come out, her voice as a black woman was still considered too inconvenient and too disruptive. But she didn't beg for people to believe her. She just moved on with her life. She left the mainstream industry and she began to create an entirely different life for herself, a life that was rooted in peace and healing. She became a trained chef. She launched her own culinary brand, and she starred in food-focused programs. After tragically losing her husband in 2022 to cancer, she turned over a deeper. She turned toward land, wellness, and motherhood, raising her children on the farm, which is what I am in the process of trying to do now. And she didn't walk away. She just recreated herself completely. And she put herself in a culture that discards black women, that no longer served her. She put herself in a better healing situation, and she grew power outside of that spotlight, far from needing validation. She survived the kind of trauma that often silences women forever in an industry that used her voice to ignore her pain. And she survived a marriage that diminished her worth, twisted her truth, and left scars that the world couldn't see. She survived being disbelieved, discarded, and dismissed simply for speaking up. She survived widowhood, parenting, through grief, and the crushing loneliness of starting over again. But instead of folding under the weight, she planted roots. So thank you, Kelis, for surviving in your own way, in your own time, and in your own term, on your own terms. Thank you for showing us that healing doesn't always look like headlines or awards. It can look like homegrown tomatoes, baby laughter, and music that no one hears with you. Thank you for refusing to be erased. Thank you for telling your story when it cost you everything. Thank you for choosing peace over performative power. You're a reminder that black women do not need permission to heal loudly or quietly to reclaim space or build new ones. We see your fire, we feel your roots, and we carry your legacy. So to everyone that was listening, first off, again, I apologize for the first 19 minutes. I'm going to try to figure out a way to crop that part out so that you don't have to deal with all of that. But I want you to hear me clearly now that you are not what they laughed at. You are not the insult. You are not the story they tried to rewrite. You are the author of your own power. So please subscribe to Empower Voices, Finding Strength in Survivors for more daily episodes like this one, or where you can tune into my podcast, Insights of a Survivor, every Friday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, or the last Saturday of the month, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time as well, where you'll catch Raw and Real with myself in all love. And this Sunday, you missed it. If you missed it, watch it on replay. But if you subscribe, you won't miss my sis, Coach Kiss, on the Kiss Corner, 6 p.m. again, 6 Central Standard Time. And please don't forget to get your copy of my book, A Place to Belong by Perry Jasper. It is a raw, heartfelt journey through trauma, survival, and reclaiming identity. If this platform, this space, and this story moved you, please donate or sponsor to help us keep reaching those who are still lost in silence. For survivors like me, we are building this for the ones who feel erased. Your contribution isn't charity; it's reparation, and it's also an investment in the freedom of our future and the future of others in this healing journey. The links are in my description below, so please, please, please be a part of the healing journey. And remember that your story does not end in pain; it begins in power. I will see you tomorrow for another powerful story of healing. I love you all. Stay strong.
Heard you looking for a hero. Well, look up. No more running from the bad guy. I'ma stare him in the eye like, what's up? I know the journey got hard for a minute, but I ain't giving this up. Yeah, I got the heart of a champion.